Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of In the Eyes of Truth. With us today is Einar Tangen. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name. It's my
That's
super.
all right. You're funnily enough, you're not the first one who had a little problem with that. It's Norwegian, and think of it as eins, zwei, drei, Einar Tangen.
Einar Tangen.
Yeah,
Yeah, I, I,
that's the
I,
way
sp-
they say it. I just say Einar Tangen, but
I, I
I
speak
butcher it
German
as
too,
well.
but yeah, I was wondering. It's my superpower, destroying people's names. I get my name destroyed constantly
I,
too. So
you opted for destroy names as opposed to the laser vision, right? Where
yeah,
you could
right, right. I could see
destroy
through
cities.
walls or I could destroy names. I went, who needs to
Well,
see through
let's see.
walls?
Yeah, names sounds more innocuous.
Einar is senior fellow at Center for International Government Innovation and chairman of Asian Narrative Substack, and he is in the heart of evil, as Donald Trump said, that where China and India, I'm sorry, where Russia and India have fallen into the heart of evil, i.e., China. So,
Yes, I've always thought of myself as, I was a lawyer, I was a politician, investment banker. I guess I really do fit into that axis of evil. I mean, I have it all the background. I mean, I might as well, just completely embrace it.
are we the axis of evil now, or are we the axis of annoyance, or it changes with Trump, I think, about every morning,
I
or
think it's
by
the figment of the imagination at the moment. It's kind of like I want to encourage companies to invest in the United States, so I'm taking firm action. $100,000 to apply for an H-1B visa. I'm sure Silicon Valley is like, what?
yeah.
You just did what? You're taxing us to do the innovation you told us to do?
Oh, what I
You
love is the tariffs because there's so many people that don't understand economics, and they think, oh yes, the tariffs. Those evil manufacturers will pay the tariffs, and then you get
no
videos
no
like
the
yesterday.
countries that the evil
Yes,
countries
yes,
will pay the tariffs because Scott Bessent wouldn't. Well, maybe he would. Yes, he is a financier. Yeah, he will lie to
is
you.
he a financier? I really doubt it. The policies he's pushing, it's hard to tell.
Okay, but you have to look at his background. Here's a guy who worked for George Soros, who is in the
Mhm.
bullseye of Trump's ire, has been as kind of this neoliberalism figure who actually has surprisingly strong ties to certain intelligence agencies in the United States
Yes,
who are very much in league with this. Let's change the regime of this country, that type of thing. Um,
yes.
yeah, I mean, when he was with George Soros, he was George's, I don't know, right hand boy, his chief lieutenant. Soros backed him in two ventures, ended up kind of rescuing him, and then at the end, he withdrew some money that he had put in because it wasn't working out. I don't know if Scott thought that this was disloyal for all the wonderful things he did, but what I really love about this guy is that he gets up there, was it earlier this year, and he said, the problem is financialization. For people who don't know, financialization is a virus that has taken over the world. And what it does is the old days, you have stock market. People would buy stocks and the proceeds would go to, enlarge the company and you'd get dividends. And it was called the capital market. But when you graduate, hundreds of thousands of MBAs each year, the idea that you're going to wait for 3, 5, 10 years for a business to mature, well, how am I going to get a bonus this quarter? So what they did is
Yep.
they started betting on the outcomes. And in order to bet on the outcomes, they used leverage. So I think the Fed interest rate is going to rise. Well, if that happens, there are things that I can bet on. And I don't just bet the money I have, I use leverage. Leverage means I go to banks or anyone who's willing to lend me money and I borrow tons of money on the basis that I'll make a small gain. All right. But that small gain, when multiplied, times a
Right.
billion, suddenly, I'm looking at a good quarterly bonus. And they can cover it up because if I make a couple of wrong bets, all I have to do is double down. It's kind of like betting red black at the casino. I keep betting red, it keeps losing. So I just keep doubling up until I win. And I only win a small amount, but it's enough for my bonus because as a percentage, it's a small amount, but the dollars involved are huge. So here's a guy who made over a minimum over $500 million working with the cheap, all right, financialization organization in the world. They were the ones who bet and then profited from the Asian financial crisis, and that was a bet. That's financialization in action. So here's a guy who it doesn't have any sense of irony to get up there and say the problem is financialization. Now, I benefited from it, but I'm not going to discuss that. I'm just going to say that there are evil people out there, like myself. I know it. I mean,
Personal experience.
How do you get over saying something like I'm a thief? And you know what the problem with the world is today?
Too many
Thievery.
thieves. Well, as Ron Paul had on his desk, he had a sign that said, "Don't steal. The government doesn't like competition." So, but and that's a good point, though. People don't
Well, it's a
understand.
monopoly, so therefore
Right.
you violate that, right?
Ex
I mean, you're hitting at the core of American values, right? You're
yeah.
you're violating the trust that is created when somebody can control you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And like I said, it's something that most people understand. Big finance, they're the enemy of industrialization. Because the small bank gives you a loan and they want you to succeed because their success is your success, paying back that loan plus interest. Big finance with a big bonus every quarter. Well, what's the easiest way? Gouge something, sell something, get the money
Well, bet
fast,
bet on something
bet on
because
something.
the money that they're betting doesn't go into the capital markets. It
Right.
doesn't help any company enlarge themselves or anything like that. It does the shareholders feel good because they're on paper, things look better or worse, whatever. But they think, oh, okay, well, this kind of worked out. But the people who are walking away with the money are the people who are doing the betting, and they're not helping anything. I mean, there's not a single job created because of that.
Very true. Very true. So how's China responding to what's the threat now? Well, Lindsay wants 500%. Trump wants 100%. I mean, might as well make it 5 billion% while we're at it.
Well, I think that's a small number. I think you have to get serious here. You got to catch China's attention. I think what's a quadrillion? Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
quadrillion.
that's. I mean, this sends a message. I mean, numbers they can get lost. This type of thing. I think it's time to really get tough. 1 quadrillion on everything, even stuff you think about. I mean, we're going to tax that too. I mean, we have to figure out how. We're going to put a
Mhm.
tariff on it, and it's all going to be paid directly by the Chinese government.
Of course, of course.
Absolutely, because it couldn't be paid by American consumers because that wouldn't be good now, would it?
Just yesterday I watched a short video. This woman's talking about America. They own some small American company. They bought a piece of equipment from Canada. And then the FedEx sent them the tariff bill separately for not like $300 on top for their equipment because, well, welcome to the tariffs that the
Well,
manufacturer
that's
pays, so-called
their
manufacturer
mistake
pays.
is they need to send it back to the Canadian government and
Right.
say, look, Donald Trump told me that this is your responsibility. I don't care if you pay it or if somebody else pays it, but please, in 30 days. I mean, we don't want to stretch this out over a long period of time. It's your responsibility. Donald Trump would not have lied to me about something this serious. This is business. He's a businessman, right? So yeah, no. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who are looking for the forms to send to the Canadian, Chinese, well, 180 countries,
Right. Right.
including some very confused penguins. Now, I've been considering them. I want to become an advisor to these islands where there are no people, only penguins. I think I could do very well, but it's a little tough. They don't have money. They keep talking about fish or something, and they don't really talk either. It's like, it's
Well,
just it's kind of like talking to politicians.
but at least you can eat the fish. Well, the other I
Well,
think thing
yeah,
they
I
do
know,
is
but they
rocks.
don't really know how to count. They're just kind of they raise the fins, like, how much fish, big fish, small fish, how many fish do I have to give? I mean, come on, I mean, at what point isn't it a laughing stock when you have a quote, leader of the free world, the international system, and the champion of capitalism, sending notices to penguins that they need to start paying up on their tariffs. Where was somebody anywhere saying, well, there are no people there? I mean, I don't think the penguins can read, and I don't think they have any bank accounts. I don't think they can pay. Where is the in between? I mean, this is something that people should be paying more attention to. It's not just the ridiculous pronouncements. It's the fact that there's no check on them.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole idea of having a civil service, is that you have happy amateurs coming in and out every 4 to 8 years, and they don't know how to run a government. I mean, they may have been successful in business or unsuccessful. It doesn't really matter. They're suddenly in a position where they're making decisions, and it used to be a check on them in terms of having civil service and say, yes, yes, this was considered before. Here are some of the issues involved. There's none of that anymore. They come out with these policies. They're not well thought out. There's massive litigation, and there are consequences. And the main consequence, um, beyond everything, is just, it's ridiculous, hypocritical, everything like that. You can say that, but the issue here, undermining um, uh, predictability. And for business, predictability is everything. I'm not going
Right.
to.
Right.
I want. I, I want to bet. I'll go to a casino. I don't need to start buying machinery and things like this, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
Absolutely.
right now, the greatest enemy to the entire world and to the United States itself is this unpredictability.
Hmm.
Even if you believe Donald Trump, he's going to be gone in three years, 4 months, or 5 months, whatever. And at that point, whoever comes in probably will be from the other side. They're going to reverse everything. So you have no ability to. There's no continuity. He did what he did. Biden undid it, part of it, and then he came back and he, put it back together. And I mean, just kind of seesaw thing where do it, undo it, do it, undo it. I mean, how can anybody plan on that? And here we
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
U.S. We tell people they should listen to us, that we're serious, that we're protector of values and institutions, the rule of law. The fact is, we're breaking all of those. We walk into countries, we blow up boats in the sea. All right. I mean, I'm not, if they're drug dealers, I'm not sympathetic. I don't care about it. But if you want to have an international system, it's a funny thing. You have to have rules, and then you have to obey the rules. Otherwise, you don't have an international system. And you cannot criticize others for breaking those rules if you do it routinely yourself. And this is, it's turning farcical.
Yeah, it
I
is.
mean,
It
they're just,
is.
I mean, it's like the court jesters have taken over the government and they're running amok on a daily basis.
And as far as well, while we're at blowing up ships or boats, I just watched a report. Coast Guard arrests three smugglers, and the ship and the boat. You can look. I mean, it's made for smuggling, obviously. Low
That's well,
profile, deep bottom, so you can pack it away. There, there are drugs because they got the drugs out. Here you got a boat with 11 people. You don't know where they're going. First of all, 11 people on a speedboat. There's no room for the drugs. So right off the bat, it's questionable. Second of all, it's
well,
just
I
an
mean, they
execution.
could have some recreational marijuana on them.
Right,
I mean,
right.
hey, don't, I mean, fentanyl can be in small packages. The guy could have like, some stuff on him he's bringing in. I mean, look, you don't need, if it's drugs or you suspect it's drugs, it's okay to kill because you're protecting somebody.
Somebody, 1,500 or was it 1,600 kilometers away from the U.S. in a speedboat. Somehow,
You see, you just don't see the beauty of it. I mean, the beauty of their action. I mean, they're showing the world we'll blow up anything anywhere.
yeah.
Well, actually, we've done that. We've done that. I think most people believe that we will blow up anything anywhere for no apparent reason or for very something very slimly connected to what we're doing. Kind of like Iraq. Why did we
Oh, yeah.
go in there? Weapons of mass destruction. Where are they?
Well,
I think George Bush is still looking. He hasn't been over there recently, but I think he's painting pictures and imagining where they hid the weapons of mass destruction.
well, in defense of Bush and
Oh, wait
Clinton
a
and
second. This
everybody
is
else.
interesting. Let me get this on tape. In defense of Bush.
Well, in defense of Bush and Clinton, when it comes to Iraq, because I was on active duty at that point.
So you were the
The
ones who were
key,
put in danger.
the
Yeah.
key witness that testified before Congress on the weapons of mass destruction just had his fourth visit in what? How many months? We got 8 months to the White House. Benjamin Netanyahu. He wouldn't lie.
Oh, Benjamin. Well, he's very reliable. Well, maybe not that real. Well, actually, let's not talk about Benjamin Netanyahu and reliability in the same sense. I mean, you're a genocidal maniac. It's kind of hard to get the rational thing going. Well, I mean, tell me, I'm very interested. What you here you are, you and your fellow servicemen put your lives on the line to do your patriotic duty. There's no question about your motivation and the fact that you are willing to make sacrifices. The question is, for what?
That's
I
a good
mean,
question. That's an excellent question. And
how do you answer that? How do you
just for
answer that?
what?
I mean, when you sit,
Yeah.
you late at night when you think of fallen comrades, you think of what happened there. What goes through your mind?
Well, it's not just that. I mean, think about the what a million or so Iraqis that were killed in the process. From starting from
That's what I mean. I
the
mean, we're
sanctions,
yeah.
running all the way up to kinetic kills, where they're either in the wrong place at the wrong time or targeted, uh, specifically targeted. Because I'll tell you, the doctrine for snipers, for example, is break contact, call artillery. And it doesn't matter who just happens to also be in that building that the sniper's sitting in a window or in a roof of. You take out everything that's there.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
they use the same doctrine in Gaza, except they assume there's one sniper in all of Gaza
yeah.
to break contact, call in artillery.
You know uh, the conflict in Ukraine, and I've got a lot of cards in that because my relatives are living on the front lines, have been shelled. My aunt has been shelled for 12 years by the Ukrainian side. My uncle died of cancer last December, and they couldn't get him to the doctor because going from Yasenovata to Gorlovka, where the doctor's clinic was, it's 30 kilometers. And I've been down that road. The Ukrainian drone operators will hit anything that's moving. They don't give a damn if it's a military car. I mean, they'll prefer military, of course. But if there's no military, hey, that bus or that taxi is just as good, and they'll go after it. But uh, there's the casualty rates for civilians. If you look at the UN report, has been like 10,000 Ukrainians. But what they're not saying is the vast majority of those Ukrainians are on the Russian side, or the civilians on the Russian side. And then you look at Israel, 10,000 is like in a month, if not less, and that's specifically civilians.
We're over 60,000 dead now, and
Well,
they're increasing by the day. It's like 300, 400 a day now.
yeah, the population has actually declined something like 400,000. So they don't know how many people are buried because they can't count them. How many people are buried, how many mass graves, how many
Yeah,
fled.
exactly. I mean, if you don't know where they are, you
Yeah.
can't count them as dead. You have to assume, you have to say, well, they're missing, and there's a tremendous amount. I mean, approaching what we call a decimation, which is a 1/10
Hmm.
death, and this is I don't know. It doesn't make any kind of sense. The kinetic warfare that's going on in Ukraine, I have my own view of it, which is there were promises made. The Washington said, "Oh, but you didn't get them in writing." Well, I'm a lawyer, know a little bit about international law. There is no court or tribunal that could enforce anything that has to do with an international treaty. Treaties are based on trust,
Right.
based on people saying, I will do this, you will do that. And it can be in writing or it can be oral, it can be whatever. Once you break the trust, there's nothing left. I
Right.
mean, it's not like Russia can say, hey, they lied. Somebody do something. Who? You can't take it to the UN. U.S. has their veto power. So you have a situation where countries, in order to do international business and relations, have to have trust, and that was destroyed by the U.S. in
Yeah.
this instance. I'm not saying that Russia did everything right. There was a Cold War. There was, a lot of hostilities going on both sides. But this is Howard Baker sitting in the Russia in Moscow, telling them, and it's recorded in memos saying we will not move 1 inch either with NATO or with the EU into areas that were previously the Soviet Union. Now, whether or not he had the legal authority to bind countries that he does not represent, that's another issue. But at that point in the world, you have the major superpowers, the United States. The assumption is that they are going to stick around and they're going to if they make a promise, they're going to follow through on it. And they didn't. And then for years and years, NATO does not go away. The Warsaw Pact, the grouping on the USSR side goes away, but not NATO. And then NATO is, a bunch of military guys in search of an enemy because they want to justify this kind of inertia that creeps into any organization. The first order of business is to extend
Yep.
um, the committee,
Right.
make sure that we get paid. We have something valuable to do. We just don't know quite what it is. And that's
We'll
what this
find it.
committee meeting is going to do. We're going to find that really important thing. So, I mean, it really has spun out of control. And, the last straw, and it was repeated many, many times, was Ukraine. I
Yeah.
mean, in 1990, I think it's 91, Putin is in the Bundestag. He speaks in German, which is a violation of his own diplomatic protocol, but it's a sign of friendliness to Germany, saying that the reunification is an open door for a united Europe that includes Ukraine. It makes perfect economic sense from the perspective that you have the number one resource nation in the world connected to one of the powerhouse, you know, industrial manufacturing areas of the world, Europe. Together, they represent a huge, what I say, power.
Hmm.
But this is the problem. Washington is not interested in having a competitor. We made that clear with Japan back in the 70s. I mean, we came in and forced them to sign the Plaza Accord. To give you an idea of just how effective that was, today the Japanese economy is worth less than it was in 1985, 86 when they signed the Plaza Accord. They've been going sideways ever since.
Yeah.
And so this is just America the way it is. We're an empire. We take and we conquer, and we follow other empires. I'm not saying we're unique in that, but that is the way we think, and we cannot therefore have any kind of real competitor. Yeah, it doesn't
Right.
matter if they're our closest friend. We see them as it's a danger. It's kind of a mafia thing. It's getting too big. We got to do something. It's just business, nothing personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
well, but and that's exactly what happens. So everybody knows, all right, because all of our leading statesmen, Kissinger, you name it, there wasn't anybody except some crackpots who thought if you go into Ukraine, it'll be a cakewalk and everything. Everyone said, look, you go in Ukraine, Russia will fight you. And if that's surprisingly, that's exactly what happened. I mean, in 2014, there's a putsch that is sponsored by the U.S., the National Endowment for Democracy. The usual suspects are involved. Europe is backing it because they think we get Ukraine on our side, and we can isolate Russia even further, and eventually they'll be whatever we want them to be, which is odd since it's already a democracy that is electing leaders. It's certainly very capitalistic, and what else? What more do you want it to be other than weaken as a
Right.
potential threat?
Right.
So this leads to the situation we're in. The Ukrainians, I have tremendous sympathy for them. They are involved in a proxy war, not their making. They've had a series since the moment that they gained independence, and I'm not saying it's not an argument to say, oh, they shouldn't be independent. I'm just saying from that moment, they have had a series of leaders who have just taken the economy down. I mean, you had the richest, most technologically advanced agricultural food basket country in the world, and unbelievable riches, kind of like Venezuela, right? You got everything. You have sophisticated, you had all the minerals. You have the sophisticated downstream manufacturings to do things from space and rockets and all sorts of things. And then you had the breadbasket, and then you had all these open borders to Europe and things like that. It should have been things, but instead, what was in the first 5, 6 years of independence, they lost 60% of their GDP.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
and where was the West saying, "Oh, this isn't working. We need to do triage"? No, it
Oh,
suddenly
they're
became an
stealing.
opportunity. Yeah, stealing.
Mhm.
Oh well, yeah. So this is what we're good at that. Oh, come
Yeah.
on, we got to give us our
You know,
kudos. We're good at the stealing thing.
and
But
that's
within
something.
within Ukraine, there's also matters as you know about corruption and things like
Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah.
But there was absolutely no zero effort that was put in to try to help Ukraine realize itself. It was all about who can we use to manipulate both sides and be truthful. I mean, there was, the more the Europeans and Americans tried to manipulate the system, the more pushback there was from Moscow because he says,
Hmm.
"Oh, we can't stand here and let these jerks come in and doing this. This is dangerous. This could lead to a war." And inevitably it does. So who's paying the price? It's like you and your friend and your fellow soldiers in
Yeah.
Iraq. You didn't plan the op. You're just there, and it's you and the people on the other side who are dying. And it's not like you hated them or they hated you. They didn't know you. You don't know them. It becomes, the old thing. Old men sending young men to do terrible things in the name of what? And eventually it's all settled at a negotiating table. But unfortunately, after that negotiating table has been built on a pile of dead bodies and tragedy.
Very true. Very true. And I was a senior director of supply chain for Eurasia for Halliburton. So I was working with
Oh,
Russian
you're
manufacturing
working.
and
You say I'm with the axis of evil. Whoa,
well, I was
wow.
one of those people
From the belly
hired
of the beast.
to put Halliburton back on its feet because the corruption in Halliburton, people steal, steal, steal. Eventually, everything starts collapsing. Then you got to bring in a group of people that'll actually get everything up and running again, and then you get rid of them because now they're
I
standing
think
in
it's
our
like the
way.
market. No, it's self-writing. At a certain point,
Yeah,
it all kind of,
yeah,
it goes around and corruption becomes honest corruption, right?
yes, yes. So one of the you expect better advisors, but one of the idiotic things that, of course, I think it was Obama who first said it. Russia is a gas tank masquerading as a country. Russia's got somewhere between the fourth and fifth largest manufacturing base in the world, I watched it working with heavy industry because of the equipment that we were buying and the sub assemblies. And I watched that industry reinvent itself and grow very quickly. Yes, it had government backing, had certain banks backing them, but they were going back.
They did it.
They did it.
They did it.
And then you
Yeah.
look at Ukraine, and they went the other direction. It was just every year. I stopped going there after 2010 because it was pointless. You couldn't do business with a businessman because all they wanted was to make one big killing and run to Italy or Germany. The government was sponsoring mass corruption, and you're just watching everything collapse. I've got relatives further west in Ukraine, and you come in there year after year to visit them, and it's not getting better. It's sure the rich are getting richer, everybody else is going in the wrong direction. And the whole country, you're just watching it fall apart and fall apart. The only two major infrastructure projects Ukraine had were two east-west highways that NATO sponsored.
Belt and Road. Yeah,
That
yeah.
NATO sponsored two east-west highways toward the Russian border. Hmm. And that's it.
Mm.
That's like the big infrastructure project in 30 years.
No, I mean, I really, I mean, the tragedy that we look at when you look at Ukraine, when you look at Gaza, DRC, I mean, there are so many hotspots around the Rohingya, all around the world that we see suffering, and it's inconceivable that
Yes.
people ignore this, but they somehow say it's all justified by some ends. What ends? I mean, the American people are not gaining anything here. Um, we're paying out between $3 and $5 billion to Israel and we're going to history has a funny way of looking at things. There's going to be a watershed, a litmus test that reflects today, when in 5, 10 years from now, when people look in the cold light of day at what happened. Um, the reality of who you are will be exposed in the positions that you took. If you said, yeah, Netanyahu, he's okay, and Israel has the right to defend itself. Well, you'll be firmly in the camp of those who supported, right-wing fascism, whether it was in Japan or Germany or Italy or wherever. And this is the greatest danger that we have today, is that a lot of this, what we're talking about, aligns with this kind of neo-fascism that is arising. Russia has talked about this, but this is a global
Yeah.
reality. You have the classic book, attack the media, say that you can't trust anybody unless I say it. Undermine the very institutions of government. So you say you can't trust government, you can only trust me. Um, the other, blame the other. This was always the way of dehumanizing some group so that you could say that they're the ones at fault. And then invariably, when the slaughtering begins of these people, in the minds of those who've been manipulated, they're just animals.
Yeah.
I did a recent 80th anniversary talk on the massacre of Nanjing. I mean, if you go to Japan today and you wander about the streets, you don't look at people and say, yeah, these people are capable of raping babies. I mean, disemboweling them in front of their mothers and then raping their mothers and killing them. You wouldn't think it's possible that these people would even think about doing something like that. And it's the issue is that fascism grows from within a small clique. They are the ones who create these monsters, who create these ideas that these are less than human people, that they are the problem, that the solution is getting rid of them. And we see that happening in the United States today. And you see the kind of violent reactions that are happening with it, with this most
Yeah.
recent killing of this young activist who was, uh, let's say, it's a personal tragedy, but you cannot conflate his personal tragedy, the fact that he was pushing this kind of authoritarian fascism, mostly backed by behind Donald Trump and everything that Donald Trump was trying to do. So, to me, if there's something we should be talking about as a society is remembering World War II. This was an anti-fascist war, and remembering the lessons of that, and not allowing those who want to bring that back dehumanize us into the kind of animals that would do the things that they did to Jews, to Chinese. I mean, people don't realize there's 100 million people died during World War II.
Yeah.
Vast majority, over 80%, were civilians. In China, China alone suffered 35 million of that, 35% of all the dead. Russia, 27 million. You add them up, they're the vast majority of people, and they were civilians. And, there's no even one person dying under those circumstances is too much. But this idea that somehow America saved the day and it was American sacrifices. Our sacrifices were the willingness to, fly a bomber over a couple of cities and drop nuclear bombs, and the, hundreds of thousands of people that were affected by it. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's courage, and it was a calculation, but I don't know if that's courage, and I don't know if that's even sacrifice.
There's also the firebombing of every single German city, Japanese cities. But 6 million Germans that were firebombed by the Anglo Alliance. People don't talk about that. Just Dresden, but
No,
it was
no,
every
no. It's
city.
it's only my sacrifices and my things. The victors write the history, and they don't really want to talk about the terrible things that they did. I mean, uh, there were atrocities documented that were performed by the quote allies. They're
Yes.
all good guys, and they always have the same thing. Well, ends justify the means. I tortured that guy to death because I thought he had information. As it turned out, he didn't. But we didn't know that until he did. He was dead.
Yep.
This is
Um,
the kind of thinking
I,
that
I'm
is,
I'm sorry I have to
dehumanizing.
interrupt. We are almost out of time. I am
Oh, I'm sorry.
unfortunately I'm on the free version of Zoom and they don't take the Russian credit cards, so we get
Yeah.
the 35
Wow, I'm
minute.
surprised. I'm shocked. Well,
Uh,
we can do it another time.
yes, I would love to
Interesting.
continue. Everybody, thank you for joining. I know. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. I'll make sure everybody gets the links. So yeah, if there's any